It's SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, welcome to another special edition of SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi. Thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi network. Just every corner of this state can hear this show. And the people who have made SuperTalk available to you that have such a great vision, one of the most unique series of radio stations in the United States, right here in Mississippi. And if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast, it's December the 6th, 2021. I say this every week, but Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in the United States. There's really no doubt about that. From the incredible salt and freshwater fishing to our turkey, duck, and deer hunting and other outdoor activities, we are so lucky to live here. I want to also thank my friend Steve Azar, the singer-songwriter, the music and cultural ambassador for the state of Mississippi, and the host of In a Mississippi Minute right here on SuperTalk, on the SuperTalk network, for his song One Mississippi, the theme song for SuperTalk Outdoors. That song will hopefully one day be the state song for Mississippi. So if you're interested, look it up on YouTube and you'll see why I'm so high on that song. I spent time in the Mississippi Delta last weekend, duck, deer hunting with my son, Jordan, and my outdoors adopted son, Jake Carter. You know, as I said before, Jake's father, Rick Carter, he loves the outdoors, but he does not hunt or fish. So years ago, Jake started joining us on our outdoor adventures and has, as I said, for many years done that. We love the Mississippi Delta, and we love, offshore fishing. But this time of year, it's all about the Delta. It's such a wonderful time of year to enjoy Mississippi's outdoors. Aldo Leopold once said this: there are some who can live without wild things, and there are some who cannot. My guests from week to week bring clarity to Mississippi's what I would say is an ancestral link to wild things. In conversation with people like Will Primos and Jimmy Primos and Brad Ferris, you see the powerful link between their love of the outdoors and their deep appreciation for those who came before them, who taught them to love hunting and fishing. They really taught them about life by taking them hunting and fishing. We heard the same thing from people like Toxie Hayes and Cuz Strickland of Mossy Oaks. All of my guests share a similar passion for those who came before them, who taught them to love and conserve the outdoors. It's powerful and it's generational. We celebrate that every single Monday here on SuperTalk Outdoors. The guests we have the opportunity to spend time with each week. I've often called them Mississippi's outdoor ambassadors, not just within the state, but across America and really around the world. Today's guest checks all of those boxes in a big way. There's definitely something deeply nostalgic about Ramsey Russell. In addition to maintaining his deep appreciation for his roots in the Mississippi Delta, he's explored 6 continents in what has been described as an epic worldwide waterfowling odyssey. He understands probably as good as anyone alive how Mississippi's outdoors fits on the global outdoors stage. So join me in welcoming Ramsey Russell to SuperTalk Outdoors. How you doing, Ramsey?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
It's good to see you. So where are you right now?
I am home. I am freshly home. I got home last night about 11 o'clock from Nevada. And and by the time this thing airs on December 6th, I'll be sitting in Connecticut.
Good for you, man. We knew in terms of getting you scheduled that you are on the go all the time, aren't you?
I try to be. Yeah, I think I can rest in the grave. That's what they say. Got an eternity to sleep. And but this time of year during duck season is very special. I love to duck hunt. Grew up hunting in Mississippi. I'm from the Delta originally. My grandfather introduced me to the sport. But golly, there's a big world out here, and it's just pulled me in. And I'll tell you, Ricky, at a level, it's more about hunting. It's more about connections with people in different places, and it's almost like a storytelling adventure. I can remember my grandmother gave me a National Geographic magazine subscription when I was in high school, and I used to pore over those pictures and look at them as a little boy. And now I feel like I'm walking through those pages, but with a shotgun and waders on.
That's so. She also gave you an 1878 Colt Hammer shotgun.
She did. She did. She sure did. When she came down, I was 15 years old, and she was rumbling around in her attic and brought that old shotgun down and handed it to me. And for a year, I was smart enough to go to a gun store and him say, "Son, don't ever shoot that gun. It's too old. It'll blow apart with these modern shells." But then technology evolved, and you could start to shoot that stuff, and it's like my ancestors began to speak to me every time I passed by and saw that gun. You see old shotguns hanging up in places like Cracker Barrel. I didn't want it to be a Cracker Barrel gun. There's a little green paint on the stock. I mean, was my ancestor painting a duck boat? Was he painting a barn? What was he doing? Painting a duck blind? I know the gun was used, and I've got a picture to marry it up with. I wish I'd thought to bring it and hold up for the video, but there was a drawing of my great grandmother did of 3 men in a skiff shooting ducks, and it's a very simple drawing, but it tells a story. And when my mother gave me that, I thanked her, but she said, "Well, honey, look at whose name it was," and I looked, I didn't recognize the name. I do now. It was my great grandmother's maiden name, and you got to figure, well, back in the late 1800s, she would have depicted, her surroundings. A 16, 17-year-old little girl would have depicted and drawn what she was familiar with. So I knew my people duck hunted in the Mississippi Delta, and I wanted to shoot that gun, and it took a little doing that. It had Damascus barrels, and the bores were bad because it was a black powder era. And I worked with some local gunsmiths and talked to some different people, and they said, "Look, if you want to shoot this gun, we just need to bore it out and put some modern day sleeves in it, and it'll shoot as a 20 gauge." Well, now, okay, so we got it to where the barrels won't burst, but what about that old 150-year-old wood stock? With these old heavy loads you got to shoot. Remember, shooting waterfowl, you got to shoot, you can't shoot good old lead anymore now in America. You got to shoot the other stuff. So we reached out to ball shot shells, and they hand loaded us some 2 3/4 inch shells, very low impact. And I went up to Bobo Break with my buddy Jim Cruz, and he said, he got some great duck hunting up there at times, but he said, "Ramsey, it's a terrible season. It's warm. There's no ducks." He said, "In fact, I don't think I've shot a limit this year." I said, "Well, Jim, we just need one bird. If we can just shoot one duck, we'll be okay." And right off the bat, right there at legal shooting time, a mallard curled in, click, click. I pulled those hammers back and got him right over the decoys. And then it's like my ancestors awakened the duck gods, and every duck in Cahoma County started pouring over the cypress trees into the hole. And I couldn't miss with that old gun hardly. But it was a huge.
That's actually at your getducks.com website. People can actually watch that video. I thought it was I remember what I was thinking when I was watching it. You standing in that cypress break, and that guitar rip that sounded something like Robert Johnson blues playing, and you had this sense about you. And when I talked about this the ancestral connection, almost couldn't say the word. You have such a great connection to the people who came before you, who influenced you, and actually at the beginning of one of those videos, I don't remember which one it was. It actually might have been that when you quoted William Faulkner. He said, "The past is never dead. It's not even past." That's what William Faulkner said. But you took your interpretation of that and said, what about that?
That we are a product of our past. The past lives in us. You're talking about the influencers and the people that coach us along. My grandfather, for example, and my grandmother, their lessons and who they were and what Mississippi was then is still in me. And that's really I think I don't know what Faulkner meant when he wrote that, but that's what it means to me.
Well, I think that's what he meant. I just think that it's, this never dies. It never dies. It does live within us. You also said something, and I think it's more profound today and more applicable to maybe this show and what we're celebrating in this show. And that is this notion that the more you travel, the closer you feel to the Delta, and you've literally traveled all over the world, that you can take you out of the Delta, but you can't take the Mississippi Delta out of you. We really do live in a small world, don't we, Ramsey?
We really do live in a small world, and it's really and we duck hunters. I'll tell you one of the most amazing things. You can travel to other countries and on other continents and shoot exotic species, the likes of which you've never seen around here. I mean, it's unbelievable. And maybe those ducks are, maybe their life behavior is such that you have to hunt them slightly different than a mallard in the flooded timber. But we're all duck hunters, whether we speak the same language or not. I'm sitting in a P-row in Azerbaijan in a 100,000 acre marsh, and there's no common barrier for language, but it's both, because we're both duck hunters, we can communicate fluidly.
We're having a conversation with Ramsey Russell. We're going to continue the conversation and talk about his world travels when we come back. See you after this break.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors from right here at the Foundation Studio in Biloxi's Back Bay. I talk about the Foundation every single week. They're the major sponsor of Super Talk Outdoors. The official name is the Foundation for Wildlife Fisheries and Parks, not to be confused with the Department of Wildlife Fisheries and Parks. What the foundation does is raise money, and they focus on issues that are important to conserving Mississippi's natural resources here in this state. And they're a group of dedicated volunteers from all over the state, and they've raised millions of dollars to help fill gaps for all kinds of things, whether it's educating our kids or bringing kids out to enjoy the outdoors, or you name it, they've been involved in it. They've been incredibly critical to the Department of Wildlife Fisheries and Parks. And again, they do get focused on issues from time to time, which is really important because they're so well connected. They're able to form coalitions around specific issues, and they make a difference. They're successful people who love the outdoors, who sort of brought their resources and their energy together and formed the foundation. And I'm really pleased to have them as a sponsor of Super Talk Outdoors. We're having a conversation with Ramsey Russell. He's literally traveled the world, but he never really lost track of where he's from. And what he was saying before we went to the break, which is, I think, so powerful. When someone thinks about a faraway land, Ramsey, they think of it being far, far away and very different. And what you've discovered in your duck hunting culture realm is that duck hunting's kind of appreciated and similar in a lot of ways, no matter where you go in the world, isn't it?
It is a universal language of sorts. You know, a duck hunter is a duck hunter. I mean, it's an art and a science, and he's connected to those birds and connected to the resource, and he knows that habitat and knows that duck behavior. And it's golly, you go to Mongolia, you know, it's as different as anything in the world. You can't hardly get there from here, and yet you're hunting among people that appreciate that bird just like you do.
Yeah, I was thinking about Faulkner, because you quoted him a minute ago, and I remembered a quote that I wanted to go back and find it, and I think it describes you. And here's what it says. This is Faulkner. I think the serious things really are the things that make for happiness, people and things that are compatible, love. So many people are content just to sit around and talk about them instead of getting out and attaining them. No one will ever accuse you of sitting around and just talking about them. You decided at some point in your life to get up and just discover the world. What is behind that?
You know, I really believe we've got a very small collection of videos we've done around the world on our YouTube channel, and I tried to articulate it in the very first one while we were in Australia. On the day we wrapped up a little filming session there in Australia, I woke up that morning, went out, had an incredible duck hunt. It was amazing, and we shot a species that they revere as like the King Daddy trophy. So I come out with practically an entire limit of these hardheads, the only diving duck in Australia that they just absolutely love. And we were wrapping up, and I looked at my watch, and it just dawned on me that it was 36 years after the fact. That very day was 36 years later that I had been involved in a home explosion. I was a very young person, almost 16 years old. I died that night in the hotel. They had to, in the hospital, they had to bop me back. I spent 6 months down at a burn center in Galveston, Texas. They had told my parents, your kid's going to die, but if he lives, he'll lose his right arm and both his legs. And I can still, if I think hard enough about it, I can remember those days and the struggle and the climb out of that real deep hole. And Ricky, it's just, I feel like, I got a second chance. And we've always said, or I've said since, Mr. Terry Dimon of Mojo Outdoors asked me one time, well, how did you come up with the name getducks.com? And I told him, I said, because life's short, get ducks. And I would tell any listener, maybe you don't duck hunt, maybe you deer hunt, maybe you play golf, but life is short. Ricky, I mean, really and truly, you got to look at it. Figure the average guy hunts 10 days a year for ducks, and the average man lived to be 72 years old. Well, if you're 50 and you got 22 years, you got 220 times left on average to go do something you love. Just imagine putting those marbles in a jar, and every time you did it, taking it out. I mean, it's finite, is what I'm trying to say. There's no guarantee that you're going to have the opportunity to get to the bottom of that jar. So it turned into something, but then I may have started off wanting to see some of it and do some of it, but as I began to see and do it, it just began to pull me into it. It's the most incredible experience to get to see the world and meet the duck hunters, not just around the world, but throughout the United States. For the last 2 years, I've been on some heroic whirlwind tours since September 11th. I've hunted Louisiana, Texas, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, throughout North Dakota, throughout Montana and Wyoming and Colorado and Kansas, home for Thanksgiving with my buddies here in Mississippi at my club, and then bam, over to Nevada, and I leave Monday to head to hit the whole eastern seaboard. I got lucky this year and drew 6 swan tags. You can legally shoot swans with tags in 10 states. 9 if you're non-resident, and I intend to shoot them all, and I tend to hunt every state and explore it. But as we go and do these trips, it's not just with outfitters, it's with our social media followers or different clients. So I really get to climb into maybe Papaw's back 40 or maybe a rice field out in California. I get to see and do all these different little nuances throughout America of all these experiences, and get to see how they see and experience duck hunting.
It is interesting, though. Let's take it back. Let's take it back to the Mississippi Delta. You heard what I said, that you had this unique perspective on how the Mississippi Delta fits into the world. How does it fit into the world?
Well, it fits into my world because I believe Mississippi Delta is like an epicenter of sorts of universal duck hunting. It's there's a few other places like the Mississippi Delta are very similar, but not quite like the Mississippi Delta. When you start looking in those ancient cypress breaks and some of the resources that we have right here in the Mississippi Delta, you'd be hard pressed to find anything like it and throughout most of the world. Now, it might be some great duck hunting, but it's not the Mississippi Delta. It doesn't have the Mississippi Delta's history. It doesn't have our culture. I tell folks, if you can start getting out of the South, you better pack a lunch, because there ain't much good food to eat when you get outside the deep South. It might be good, but it ain't home cooking.
So Ramsey, let's go back to the explosion. What was the explosion?
The explosion was I had a bird dog that had torn up some doors, scratching to get in, and was out there painting it, and went to clean those paintbrushes with some gasoline, and a pilot light cut on and ignited those gas fumes. And apparently the door was shut or not open enough. And so it just created a carburetor-like combustion inside that room I was in.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so it's clear, though, before the explosion, you had a connection to the outdoors. You had people who cared deeply about you. You had a desire to do things in your life. But it was the explosion. I mean, I'm sure that you see your life, and it's been written that you see your life as before the accident and after the accident.
Absolutely that, yeah.
When you come out of so you went into the accident with good values and a good sense of, wanting to be somebody. the accident happens. You have to fight your way through that. And I guess you decided somewhere along the way that you're going to leave no stone unturned. I mean, it's just, that's the way you approach life.
That's the way that's exactly kind of how it was. I tell you what started the big crazy. Now, when I was in school, we went down to Texas and did a little snow goose hunting, and it dawned on me that there was hunting outside of Mississippi. That the world was a lot bigger than just my backyard. But part of my rehabilitation, self-rehabilitation, was I started riding a bicycle, and went to Mississippi State University, met a guy from New York. We're still close friends. And he had planned a cross from Maine to Washington State bicycle ride. And he and I, summer 1990, got on a couple of bicycles and rode across the country. And, I'm still in touch with people. We would stop in the evenings and knock on a door and ask if we camp in the backyard. We broke college kids. We couldn't afford to stay in a hotel, let alone, a nice hotel. And we ate just dry beans and ramen noodles the whole way across. We ended up raising $30,000 for the Mississippi Firefighters Memorial Burn Center that summer, it turns out. But it opened up this world of traveling. I met all these people, and my wife says, honey, this is just a continuation, but with a shotgun, because you're still meeting all these people and coming into their lives and sharing their lives and becoming a part of it. And that's really kind of where the big travel bug hit, was after that big cross-country bike ride.
So why don't we do this? We're coming to the end of this segment. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Ramsey Russell. He's going on a duck hunting odyssey literally around the world. We'll learn about what was the first big trip that he took, and when did he start to realize that we actually do live in a small world, and that it opened up more opportunities, and now this incredible worldwide ability here. So when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Ramsey Russell.
Mississippi. Football, a Gulf Coast sunset, and a Delta.
Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors, and thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi network. I had the pleasure of spending some time with Ramsey Russell today. And, he's traveled the world duck hunting. He's from the Mississippi Delta. Sometimes, Ramsey, some of the best conversations happen when we're off the air. And I shared with you a conversation that I had with Dorothy Roberts. She's the sister for Robin Roberts of Good Morning America. And the family's a good friend, really good friends of mine. Her mother, Lucy Marion, was just a special lady. And she said along the way that Robin said along the way that through her difficult time, she had breast cancer and then a form of leukemia and had to have a bone marrow transplant, that she didn't want to miss the meaning and her challenges, and that she was really focused on making sure she understood the meaning of her challenges. What's so cool about you is that you understand and understood young in your age. You were just almost 16 years old when the explosion happened, and you weren't even expected to live. You immediately sought the meaning of your situation, and you've lived it up to this point in your life, haven't you?
I have. I've tried to. The late Keith Tonkel of Jackson, Mississippi, actually Clinton, he was a minister for a long time in a little church called Wells. He put me on the spot one time. I was a child. I was 19 years old. And, public speaking doesn't come easy to a lot of people, let alone a 19-year-old kid. But he put me on the spot one time to get up and speak in front of his congregation. And on the fly, in the moment, came the realization as I was scrambling for something to say, looking at that audience, I realized that scars are part of the human condition. Everybody, it's just who we are as humans. We all go through trials and tribulations. It might be conspicuous like mine on the outside, or it might be a scar across somebody's heart or soul that you never know the kind of weight they're carrying. But we all know that everybody's been through that. And what I realized in that moment behind that pulpit for all of 5 minutes was that really and truly scars do heal.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a reminder that you can get through things. And I've tried to persevere since then and just move on and create a life, a life worth living. And that, we all got to get out and make a living. We all got to get out and earn a check. But wow, we've got a very brief amount of time on this earth to have a life. And that's really what I value a lot, is just having a good life. And if I can help people get out of their little foxhole along the way, then that's good too.
Well, when you think about it, what you bring to the table is an uncanny ability to develop relationships with people. You have empathy. You connect with people. You're in the people business. You love duck hunting and the culture around duck hunting. It would seem to me that your scars, since they're noticeable, your scars create the opportunity for you to say what you just said to me to people who may need you to hear what you have to say about that. They're as you pointed out, their scar may not be noticeable, but hell, everybody's got challenges in life, don't they?
Yeah, we all do. It's a part of the human condition. We all carry some form of scar. It just, to get to the finish line in this mean old world, you're going to have some scars, whether you want them or not.
Yeah. Hey, one other thing. When you're in we're going to talk about your first big trip, but I just wanted to say this. You said you keep referring to the issues around the clock and how time is short, and boy, is it short. I mean, time flies so rapidly. And I would say the way to make time sort of stop is to get in a duck blind or go wade out into a cypress bottom and just enjoy that moment. That's as close as you can get to the clock kind of stopping as you can get, isn't it?
Well, that's a good way. I never thought about it that way, but you're right. The duck blind is a rare place, and I never really appreciated that as much as I did when my sons were in high school, fixing to leave the home and go to college and begin building their own lives. And they're just things you need to talk about, conversations you need to have. But have you ever tried having a conversation with a kid sitting there playing on his phone? But that doesn't happen in a duck blind. In a duck blind, in between the volleys, that's where real life happens.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got those talks, and it's just guys, like being, I guess, alone. I'm not Catholic, but I imagine it being kind of in a confessional booth of sorts. When you're sitting there on the stand with your kids, you get to have those real conversations.
I am Catholic, and it is like that. And what I've often said, like, for example, you can, if you go do a backwater trip fishing, it's going to be a short trip. But if you go offshore, you're going to be in the boat all day long, all day long. Can't get out unless you decide you want to swim home. So the opportunity to be in the boat with my two sons over all of these years, so we can talk about life and the good and the bad and the ugly, it makes a huge difference, and it really does strengthen your relationship with your kids. That is for sure. Hey, listen, when did you take that first big trip? What was it, and when did you start to realize the world's actually pretty small?
Well, right after college, I started work with the federal government, and a buddy of mine, Mr. Ian Munn, who 30 years later, we're still duck hunting together. He was a professor of mine at Mississippi State University. I talked him into going to Canada, and it was an unmitigated disaster of a hunt. It began an hour after daylight on the first day with an inebriated Native American picking us up to go hunting. He was so drunk he couldn't stand up straight without leaning on his truck. And it ended just about where it started. But I just realized, we did have a couple of good hunts. We had some memorable hunts that week that we made happen ourselves. But then I began to go out and look around and go to other places. That one bad hunt is what ultimately projected me down the path of this business called GetDucks.com. This one bad hunt in Canada. And as we began to go down the path from Canada to Argentina to Mexico, the world just kept getting bigger and bigger. But once you've been everywhere, you realize just how small it really is. It may be 6,800 miles from here to Baku, Azerbaijan, but you're in the airport and you bump into somebody that you know what I'm saying, or something like that. It never ceases to amaze me. In this day and age with social media, we do so much in social media as kind of an outreach program. It's almost like one world now. No matter where in the world you're standing, countless of the times I've been sitting thousands of miles from home, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but 9 o'clock Mississippi time, and answer the phone, and we talk about duck hunting. We talk about a trip coming up or something like that. I don't know. It's just my biggest fear is that I'm gonna run out of world to see before I'm ready to quit. That's a big fear.
So it's interesting. I would be interested in learning all the continents you've been to and places you've been. Where's a place you haven't been to yet that you really want to go to?
Southeast Asia. I want to go to Southeast Asia, and we're talking South Korea, North Korea, some places like that. But what you run into when you start running out of places to look, it's like I've got questions now. I've been invited to hunt a lot of neat places, but I've got to ask important questions. Is hunting legal? Are the species legal? Are the species endangered? Is firearm possession legal? And if I can possess a firearm, can I even get ammo? There's a lot of little nuances there. Yeah. And, Belize is a fine example. I got invited to go to Belize one time, and I actually went down. I was young and dumb enough to go not ask those right questions, and went down and saw some of the most massive flocks of blue-winged teal I've ever seen in my life, only to find out I could get 10 years sentence just for having a piece of ordnance in my pocket, because I'm not licensed. I'm not Belizean. So there goes that great hunt. But you have to ask those questions and look. I really want to get into Northern Africa. I'm talking Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, and I really want to get into Southeast Asia. And there's other parts of Australia. There's still remaining parts of the United States and Canada, though not many. There's still a few other places I need to get. Russia, we're going back this time into the kind of the Volga River part of Russia. Looking hopefully this spring, if not this spring, next fall. But the places I still want to go or that have never been, that I don't know for sure if hunting even exists, is going to be Southeast Asia.
That's so interesting. How do you decide? Is it as much about the culture that you want to experience as it is the duck hunt?
Territory. The culture comes with the territory. I've got a little podcast, and one of my listeners told me the other day. He said, you're not a duck hunting podcast. You're a cultural anthropologist. I said, yeah, I'm gonna put that on a business card. but cultures are people, and duck hunting is a culture. Duck hunting is a culture. You can lump all the duck hunters around the world, from Pakistan to Mississippi, put them in a boat. We're all duck hunters, and so that comes with the culture, comes with the territory. But I'm looking for sometimes, I don't collect species. Some people collect species. I don't collect species, but it's where that little bird takes me off the beaten path. Then comes the food and the cultures. That's what I look for.
We're going to continue the conversation with Ramsey Russell here on SuperTalk Outdoors after this break. Join us for the final segment. We'll see you after this.
Whistling that sweet soul for him. I said 3 Mississippi to this land called home. I'll breathe Mississippi till I'm dead and gone. Just carry on. I'll carry on. Mississippi.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Mathews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome to the final segment of Super Talk Outdoors, brought to you by the Foundation, and we're having a conversation with Ramsey Russell. He has explored 6 continents and what has been described as an epic worldwide waterfowling odyssey. One of the questions I have, Ramsey, have you found yourself in, I don't even know, a cypress break in Russia or wherever you might go, and thought to yourself, holy mackerel, for a minute, I thought I was standing in the Mississippi Delta?
Yeah, I have. I tell you, there's one of my favorite places on earth, and you can't hardly get there from here. It's in northern Argentina. It is way, way, way off the beaten path, and it's a 130 square mile remote marsh. For the last 10 years, I've said, when I die, I want my ashes scattered here. I love this place. But it's almost not a place in terms of geography. It's a place in terms of time. It's like setting back to the mid to late 1800s. To me, it is. And it's kind of how I imagine, even though it's open marsh, it's how I imagine the Deep South looking back when that picture of those 3 men in the boat shooting that old double barrel shotgun my grandmother gave me.
Yeah.
It's a sense of place and time right there that really hits home. In terms of people and culture and history and warmth, I think Mississippi is singular unto itself. You know what I'm saying? Mississippi is a very, very special place. And, I think it's why I'm able to communicate and get out because of my sense of Mississippi going with me. Who doesn't like Mississippi, or what we stand for, who we are as people?
Yeah, I say it all the time on my show, Coast View, and I've said it from time to time here on SuperTalk Outdoors, that what defines Mississippians, first of all, we live in a politically divided world these days, and the one place where we can be one Mississippi, really be together, forget about our politics, just be together, is when we're in the outdoors together. That is truer than anything I can say. But, we've had so many challenges over so many years, economic challenges of the Delta, hurricanes on the coast, oil spills, pandemics. Our ability to bounce back, our ability to care about our neighbors defines us as Mississippians. And it's the thing that separates us oftentimes, not that other people don't have similar trials and tribulations in their lives, but just something about our unique history that defines us in a way that people can see when they come here from all over the world to come to Mississippi. They see something in us. And you are able to sort of represent that when you go to places like Argentina and Russia or wherever you go, and you see it, don't you?
Yes, I really do. And, I believe what people see in the state of Mississippi, they see a genuine authenticity. And there's nothing more authentic than a scar. You see what I'm saying? It's very parallel in that right there. I believe we Mississippians are very genuine and very authentic, and I think that's where our sense of hospitality comes from.
Hey, there's a great series of shows on Apple Plus by Ewan McGregor. Have you seen those? Long Way Up, Long Way Down, and Around. 3 different ones. And Ewan McGregor from Star Wars and his friend, they went on journeys from the tip of South America to L.A., and they went around the world on motorcycles, and they stopped along the way. They went from Europe, down to the point of Africa. And the impression that I got from watching that, it's a terrific show. I strongly recommend you see it. You'll be able to relate to it so significantly. Is that most of the world is not where big cities with lots of people. Most of the world are just a collection of small towns where their own culture, and they care deeply about it. They may speak another language, but they care about you. Is that what your experience has been?
Yes. That's been my experience. It's a big. If you view the world through the news channel, you'll never leave your front porch. But I tell you something I'll never forget. I'll never forget sitting in Pakistan. When you think of Pakistan, you think of the big mountains like Afghanistan. The Indus River runs right. This fertile river valley runs right down through Pakistan, and we were sitting south of Karachi on a feudal lord estate. I mean, this guarded palatial place. He had a Bengal tiger in his den, mounted, and millions of dollars worth of these crazy sheep and animals and stuff. But I never will forget sitting around a campfire listening to my fellow hunters who were Pakistani telling Uncle Side jokes. You want to talk about a small world? I'm in Pakistan listening to these avid Pakistani hunters who say, well, he's from Mississippi. Start telling Uncle Side jokes because that's something I'll never forget.
That is so incredible, actually, and I'm not surprised to hear that. Hey, listen, we're coming to the end of our time together, but if people want to learn more about Ramsey Russell, you can go to getducks.com. You can just do a search, Ramsey Russell Ducks. You're going to get lots of choices. They're going to come up. Watch some of his videos. He's got videos from all around the world. You get a sense of this deep connection he has to Mississippi, and we'll have you back on soon, Ramsey. Cammie, our producer, said this was going to be a good one. You're going to want to have him back, and I certainly have that impression. It's been great to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you. I would invite everybody to take a listen to our podcast, available anywhere you download podcasts, Duck Season Somewhere, where you get to meet with the conversations I have with a lot of these duck hunters. All the videos are on our YouTube channel, Get Ducks.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day, and we'll see you next Monday. Stay safe.